Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the DFS Army Killshot podcast. I'm Kyle Marley. With me is my man Dan Levy from Half the Battle. We're here for DFS Army to break down this UFC Vegas 40 card, Aspen Ladd versus Norma Dumont. We'll break this down from a DraftKings and somewhat betting angle as well. Definitely not the greatest card on paper, but there's still $100K to be won on DraftKings, and 2 years ago, we wouldn't even get that with the John Jones card. So I'll be playing, and that might make me interested enough to watch it, but we'll have to see about that part. But let's break this down. How you doing today?
Doing well, man. I mean, look, times have truly changed. 100K and Aspen Ladd and Norma Dumont's the main event. So it's a sign of the times, and it's exciting to know that. So, I mean, that only means what's the prize pool going to be for the next John Jones fight, right?
Yeah, I know. We'll get some milli makers back in here eventually with these prize pools that we're getting every week. You would think, anyways. But let's start this off with the first fight of the night. We got the curtain jerker Irene Carnalosi minus 164 versus Estela Nunes plus 134. I know Nunes is coming back from like a 3-year layoff. She was suspended for 2 years because of PEDs, but she looked pretty good. She looked UFC ready on the tape that I saw. I don't know how much, PEDs could have played into that, but I think she's pretty solid. And then Carnalosi is just like a Jessica Andrade light. You know what I mean? She's a little less calorie, but kind of the same type of person. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, no, well said. Ariane Carnalosi has that Jessica Andrade style, similar to someone else who's on the card in Lupita Godinez. In these lower weight classes for the women, power can override technique a lot of the time. So she'll go out there, chuck big bombs, pick you up, throw you over her shoulder. And Estela Nunes, I agree with you. She looked pretty UFC ready. It's just how is she actually going to look now under the bright lights? So for that reason, I do have to side with the UFC experience of Carnalosi. I'm going to go with her, but I expect it to be a fun, competitive fight.
I agree. I think Nunes really needs this fight just to stay at range. She can use her length, and she's got some crisp striking as well. It's just I don't think Carnalosi will accept that. I think she's just going to get on the inside, take some shots to give her own, and then land some bombs, if not picking her up and slamming her, making that look good on the judges' scorecards. So I like Carnalosi here as well. I think either of them could get a finish. A knockout finish is in play, and neither one of them has ever lost a decision. All three of their losses have come inside the distance. But I don't think we're getting a submission here. I think it's just more likely that Carnalosi would get takedowns and spend some time in top control, land some heavy ground and pound type thing. But they'll both have nice shots on the feet and some KO power as well. So I do not mind this fight at all for DraftKings, but Carnalosi is going to be my preferred play and pick to win it. Next one, we got Brandon Davis making his UFC return after going 4-0 on the regional scene to earn his way back. He's the underdog here, plus 152 against the favorite Danab Batgirl, minus 188. Talk to me about this one.
Exciting fight. I mean, Brandon Davis, even the fights he loses are often competitive, hard-fought fights, and I expect no less here. I mean, they opened Danab Batgirl minus 300, which I thought was a bit wide. I mean, he came out here and he crushed 2 cans exactly how you're supposed to crush those 2 cans. I mean, went in there against Guido Canetti, Kevin Natividad, knocked them out in the first round, handled them accordingly. Which, just to put into perspective, you look at like another prospect, this kid, Mana Martinez, he was out here going to split decision with Guido Canetti. So at least with Dana Batgirl, he's handling these guys how he's supposed to. But the reason I don't think he's, going to go to that top 15 trajectory is you look at that Hailey Alatang fight, and you should be beating guys like that if you're going to make it to the rankings. So that being said, I kind of view this as a dog or pass situation. I think it's going to be a close, competitive stand-up fight. The areas that give Brandon Davis the most trouble is when people take him down. And Dana Batgirl's landed a total of 0 takedowns in his UFC career. So I see it being a stand-up fight. I'm going to lean with Batgirl, but at the betting window, it's a dog or pass situation.
Yeah, I definitely think it's dog or pass, and I'm going to lean with Davis for that reason. I think he can just strike and grapple at a high pace for a longer period of time, in my opinion. It looks like Batgirl has a higher strikes landed per minute here, but that's just because he ended those last 2 fights really early. He would have only scored 71 DraftKings points had he won his first fight in the UFC, the one that went to a decision. And I just think Brandon Davis can outland him on the feet. I think he's the more technical striker. I would give Batgirl the power edge, and he is more likely to get like a first round knockout here. But I think that's what he has to do in order to be on this 100K lineup. Whereas from Davis, I think he's probably going to score 10x in any win, and I just think he can go at a higher pace for a longer period of time. So I'm going to take Davis to get the win here. And I've never been sold on Batgirl at all, and I have thought Davis has been somewhat decent. He lost to some really solid competition. That win against Randy Costa looks really good now too. So I hope he comes back and looks better than ever. So give me Davis in there. I think he's in play in all formats, even though the KO from Batgirl is there. I just think that the floor is solid enough if he doesn't get it. Next fight on the card, we got Lodovic Klein minus 340. We got our biggest favorite and the highest priced DraftKings fighter versus Nate Landwehr plus 260. Break this one down for me, man.
Yeah, for Ludovic Klein to come out here and cover that salary tag, he's going to have to get that early finish. That's literally the only way. He kind of actually, in a funny way, kind of reminds me of Conor McGregor. The reason why is because Conor's kind of known for that big left hand. Ludovic Klein's known for that big high kick. These guys are super explosive in the early going, but if you can get them past that 5 to 7 minute mark, they ain't exactly known for their toughness. I really felt like that last fight, Trezano exposed Ludovic Klein, even though I scored it for Klein. Don't get me wrong. I scored that fight for Klein, but it showed you that, man, this guy's like an unbelievable fighter in the first 5 minutes. But then after that, I mean, I guess his style requires so much explosiveness, so much energy that it's just natural that he's going to fade. So here's the issue with Nate Landwehr. He gets hit 8 times per minute. So Nate Landwehr is going to be getting tagged early and often. So most likely Ludovic Klein is going to come out here and knock out Nate Landwehr. The thing is, if Nate Landwehr can survive these first 5 to 7 minutes, drag this into deep waters, I think he's the tougher guy. So if this goes past the 5 to 7 minute mark, you should go hit up that live betting window and maybe take a shot at like the plus 1,000 odds on Nate Landwehr. But I'm going to go with Klein to get him out early.
Yeah, I totally agree. Really, with everything you said, Klein has to get an early knockout here to end up on that optimal, just because he's not active enough on the feet. He's usually the one moving backwards. He's not putting up a high pace. But Landwehr, I think, will tick that up a little bit from him because he will push a pace. And if Klein wants to stay in this fight, he's going to have to match it. But yeah, I think the knockout is his best chance at winning. He is minus 165, I believe I saw, inside the distance. Yeah, and then plus 150 to win in round 1. Plus 150 is a 40% chance. I think that's a good number there for DraftKings. Have him around 40% of your lineups and hope that he gets that round 1 knockout. Landwehr is a slow starter, so I just think that round 1 could be hell for this dude, and he's taken 2 brutal knockouts already in the UFC. Think we could see another one here with those mean kicks of Klein. So that's what I'm going to take to happen, is Klein to get that first round knockout, which makes me like him on DraftKings. But as you mentioned, if Landwehr makes it out of that first round, not only will Klein not score 100 plus if he wins, but Landwehr is very live to win a decision here. And if it goes all 3 rounds, I think he's probably going to get it done. So maybe look to hedge with that live bet if you are overweight on the Klein side on DraftKings. And then with Landwehr on DraftKings as well, he's the cheapest guy on the card. I don't hate him as a punt just because he is live to win this fight. And if he wins, I think he's scoring over 10x. So I'm cool with both sides of this fight, but we can get away from it and hope that it just goes into the later rounds and hope that Klein wins, because that probably won't get it done for him, and these other favorites would pass him up. Next one on the card, we got Lupita Godinez making her comeback from last week. She looked like a world beater, and she's fighting Luana Carolina plus 198. Break this one down for me, bro.
So, man, she looked like a world beater last week, but she also fought kind of a bit of a soccer mom last week. I think this is a much tougher fight, and I think the line has a little bit of recency bias in it, man. Like, I think that Luana Carolina's been out here paying her dues, man, and she's fought people that go out there and throw loopy punches and are headhunters, kind of like Priscilla Cachoeira, kind of like Pollyanna Botelho. Like, she's faced heavy hitters before, so I just can't get behind Godinez being minus 300. Like, for her to be minus 300, she needs to come out here and handle her like she handled that opponent last week. And I just don't see that being the case. I see this being a hard-fought, 3-round fight. So for that reason, give me Luana Carolina via split decision.
All right, I dig it. I do like Lupita Godinez. I didn't think she was going to look as good as she did last week, but that made me like her just even more. However, it's fresh in my head, just like it's fresh in everyone else's head, and that is going to make her one of the more chalky options on this card because she scored 127 DraftKings points. Now she's stepping in just 1 week later. Who knows how much beer and pizza she had after she got that win, you know? And she's stepping up a weight class where she's at an 8-inch reach disadvantage. And if Luana Carolina can keep this fight on the outside, that's how she wins it. She just puts up a high volume at range, and she can maybe pick Godinez apart long enough to win 2 rounds. So I definitely don't hate that call on the split decision. I could see that going this way, but Godinez, man, I just like her boxing more than I like the Muay Thai from Carolina. I think she's a really good wrestler as well. Maybe the size disadvantage makes that harder than it did in her last fight, but I still think she can have a lot of success on the mat here. So I do like Godinez. I like her in all formats. I'll put out my ownership later in the week on DFS Army. And if I have her at, under-owned type play, then I'll go overweight. But if I have her as like the chalk of the card, then I'll look to go underweight on her and target other favorites who I think have a higher ceiling and maybe a better chance of winning. Speaking of DFS Army, we got NBA's coming real soon. It's, I believe, a week or 2 weeks away. We got NFL season here. We've been crushing it this year. No better time to sign up. When you get all the sports, you can get them all for one price. Use promo code Sleeveless. That'll get you 10% 10% off every month. We have tools, coaches, projections for all sports. Great optimizer. Awesome Discord. Go in there. Check it out. Give us a shot, and I think you'll like it. But yeah, back to this card. We got Ramazan Amiiev minus 310 versus Danny Roberts plus 240. Really not looking forward to this one, really, from watching or even DraftKings angle. But how do you think it's going to go down?
I'm very surprised about that line. To be 100% frank with you, man, because I mean, firstly, Danny Roberts is undefeated when fights go the distance. When guys come out here and beat Danny Roberts, they usually run him over. And Ramazan Amiiev is simply not that guy. Ramazan Amiiev is more of a, he'll push you up against the cage. It'll be a close, low output fight. With 1 minute left, he'll score that takedown and seal the round. And it's just like, I don't see him being minus 300 here, man. I mean, he had a close fight with Nicholas Stolze, that dude that my friend Jared knocked into the 5th row. And that guy Stolze even landed a knockdown on Ramazan Amiiev. So I don't know, man. I think I'm going with hot chocolate here to get it done. Just stylistically speaking, I don't think that this is the kind of fight that hot chocolate tends to lose. I see this being a closely contested 3-round war. It's going to be a battle of wills, and in a battle of wills, give me the plus 250 dog. So give me Danny hot chocolate via split decision.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, Roberts is the better striker here, the more dangerous striker. It's just that I don't think we're going to get a 15-minute striking match. I think we'll see a lot of Amiiev control time, whether it's against the cage or landing one takedown and hanging out in top control for 2 or 3 minutes. That's just how I see Amiiev getting this win, is just controlling the fight longer than Danny Roberts has a chance to win a striking battle. But yeah, I can't wait for Amiiev to take a step up one day. I mean, he's been fighting like the same level of competition his entire UFC career. The fade is there eventually. I just don't think – I don't know. This could be the spot. I just don't personally think that this is going to be it. And that's what makes me not like it on DraftKings, because I don't see Amiiev putting up a really high score, and he's the second most expensive fighter on the card. So if I think he's going to win with 75 points, that makes me not like either side. But if Roberts can go out there and make this a striking match, he's definitely live to win. He could get a knockout. So I don't hate the underdog side, and maybe that's my preferred play of the two. But overall, I just won't be getting to this fight very much in my lineups, especially with my hand-built lineups. I really don't see me clicking that fight there. But if I'm making 150, putting them in the DFS Army Optimizer, that's where I'm cool with either guy, but I would rather limit them to, like 10 to 15% range, something like that. All right, next one on the card is actually one of my favorite DraftKings fights to target. We got Bruno Silva minus 164 versus Andrew Sanchez plus 134. Talk to me about this one.
I'm a big fan of Bruno Silva. I mean, he's one of these guys. He went over to Russia. He's a Brazilian. Went over to Russia. Won a belt there. I mean, knocked out Shlemenko. Knocked out Frolov. Comes to the UFC. Knocks out what's the name of the kid that just beat Alvey? Turman. Wellington Turman knocks him out. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bruno Silva. Andrew Sanchez is tough. He's battle tested, but I think he's going to take another knockout loss here. Give me Bruno Silva. He will definitely be in a good bit of my lineups.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see this going as well. I like both sides of it because of that knockout potential for the Silva side. I think he can get a knockout really in any round, but if it's in round one, just go ahead and throw him on the optimal lineup. And then on the Sanchez side, like he doesn't need a knockout in this fight. Maybe he can get it, but he has the potential to get 100 points with his wrestling in a decision. That's where he should look to get this fight. Get Silva out of his comfort zone and where the power that he's thrown doesn't hurt your chin quite as much. But the worry with Sanchez wrestling is back when he used to do that, he would gas out, and in the third round, he would have nothing left. I don't know if that's still the same case or not, but I'm cool with both sides of this fight, and I want this in the majority of my DraftKings lineups because I think the winner has a good chance at scoring well. Not quite an all-in fight, but they're priced, close enough to the mid-range where I want to make it a point to get these guys in my lineups. I probably won't start my hand builds here, but I want to get one of them in based on whatever fits salary-wise in my last, 2 or 3 spots, something like that. All right, next one we got Julian Marquez minus 250 versus Jordan Wright plus 198. I'm going to be on the fade Jordan Wright train until he just really proves me wrong. I mean, he got an early knockout in his last fight, but I thought that was more his opponent just running into the shots rather than him looking good. So I'll be on the Marquez side here, but how do you see this one going down?
So it's funny because I think the early going, I actually think Jordan Wright's going to have some success because, I feel like if these two sparred in the gym, Jordan Wright would actually get the better of it. He's got better technique than Marquez, but fights aren't just about technique. Fights are about toughness and durability, and that's where Marquez is going to have a huge edge. So early going is going to go to Jordan Wright, but at some point, Marquez is going to find his chin and he's going to get him out of there. So give me Marquez via knockout.
Yeah, I think Wright would be the better striker at range, just a better karate-style fighter, but Marquez can get this fight on the inside. I just think if he's not having an at-range battle, he's the better fighter everywhere. I think 3 of his 4 UFC victories are all submissions, but he's never landed a takedown in the UFC, so it's hard to trust that he's going to initiate the grappling. But either way, I think he can get a knockout or a submission in this one and score well. I don't know that he would score great in a decision win, but I don't feel that great about any fighter on this card scoring, 100 plus in a decision. So he's going to be one of my favorite fighters on the card just because I think he is likely to get the finish. We got the minus 150 inside the distance line. That's 60% right there. I don't hate having around 60% Marquez in my lineups. I think he'll be one of my favorite plays on the card to target, but I more so like him for GPPs because if Wright is going to win this fight, I think the KO is in play, and I just don't trust the floor from Marquez as much as I trust, like a guy like Lodovic Klein. I don't see Landwehr going out there and getting a first-round knockout where I think Wright would be more likely to get that. I'm going to fade Wright, but it is a risky fade because that knockout potential is there. He ruined my night last time I faded him. It could happen again, but I'm just going to keep rolling that fade. Probably his whole career. Next fight, we got one I'm looking forward to, actually. Manon Fiorot, minus 235 versus Mayra Bueno Silva, plus 186. I don't remember if we broke this one down or if it fell off before we could actually break it down a few weeks ago, but I'm a lot more interested in it in this card because we don't have, 4 or 5 other huge favorites that I would rather target over Fiorot. But break this one down for me.
Yeah, I mean, Fiorot should be favored. The only thing is Mayra Bueno Silva ain't some pushover like these other people that Fiorot's been fighting. I mean, Bueno Silva hits very hard for the division. She's got offensive submissions off her back as well. Fiorot doesn't really shoot for too many takedowns, so it's going to be a stand-up fight. So I'm going to lean with the technique of Fiorot. It's just that Bueno Silva ain't just going to take a knee for nobody. I expect this to be the toughest fight of Fiorot's UFC career thus far.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's going to be her toughest striking fight of her UFC career, and I think she could also have to worry on the ground a little bit here if it hits the ground. But yeah, I think this will just be a fun striking match where both ladies can throw power. They're live to get that finish. And the reason I like Fiorot more is because I do think she can score well. She could get some takedowns here. She could get a TKO. But on the last card she was on, there were like 4 or 5, minus 300 plus fighters who were likely to finish, and it was just hard to get to her on that card. That's not really the same case on this card, and I think this fight just as a whole could score well. So this is another one where I'm cool being overweight to both sides of the fight, but I am going to pick Fiorot to get the job done. I think her striking is legit. I think she can either get a decision there or just get a knockout at some point, maybe keep her second round TKO streak moving. But yeah, this will be, a top 3 or 4 fight, I think, for me on this card, DraftKings wise. Next one on the card, we got the vet Jim Miller minus 225 versus newcomer Eric Gonzalez plus 180. Break this one down for me.
This smells like retirement fight time for Jimmy Miller. So gonna be popping a little bottle for my boy Jim Miller when he gets this first round submission. I mean, look, Eric Gonzalez, tough Mexican kid, but just not on this level. I mean, he lost to Humberto Bandone. He just simply ain't on this level. I mean, to beat Jim, survive the first round, he tends to not do as good in the second and third these days, but Jim Miller's going to finish this kid in the first round via submission, and I look forward to popping bottles. I hope he throws those gloves down in the center of the octagon, has a nice speech. We all get emotional. We all cry. I mean, dude's a Hall of Famer. Dude's had the most fights in UFC history. We love you, Jim Miller, and I look forward to seeing you either choking this guy out or getting the tap to an armbar.
Yeah, that submission is his best chance. In his last 12 fights, he is 4-8, and all 4 of those wins are first round submissions. It's not submission or bust for him because I think he is the better fighter, really. Possibly everywhere, maybe aggressiveness and toughness wise, we can give it to Gonzalez, younger, of course. But I think he's at a big grappling disadvantage against a guy like Jim Miller, and that first round submission is very in play here, and that's what makes me like him on DraftKings. If he goes out there, gets a takedown, lands a couple ground shots, locks up the submission, we're looking at 100 points. And if you get 100 points on this card, I think you got a good chance of making the optimal lineup. So I do like Miller. I don't see Gonzalez as a guy who's going to score 100 points in this fight, but if he can make it out of that first round, I think he is a live underdog. So he's somewhat in place for GPPs just because it could come down to if an underdog wins, they're on the optimal lineup type thing. So I won't X him out of my player pool, but I doubt I'm really making any Eric Gonzalez lineups with my hands. It would all be optimizers if he's in there. And I'm cool with Jim Miller really in all formats. What does worry me, though, is he's plus 200 inside the distance, and we need him to get that. The finish for him to score well. If this goes all 3 rounds, not only would I not feel good about him getting the win, but I really don't think he would score well. So for DraftKings, early submission or bust for Miller. All right, and then the next one on the card, one of my least favorite DraftKings fights, but it's a really close fight on paper. We got now the favorite, Carlos Felipe, minus 112 versus Andre Arlovski, minus 108. So really pick him here. Who you got?
I mean, I always pick against Arlovski, except that last fight with Sherman, because Sherman's a walking punching bag. So that was the one where I took Arlovski. But here, man, I mean, oftentimes to fade Arlovski, you got to pay up. You got to pay up minus 250, minus this, minus that. I mean, this is like a pick 'em. And I think a lot of people are bitter about that last fight Felipe had with Jay Collier, because they bet a plus 250 on Collier and he lost a split. But I mean, if you really watch that fight, Felipe broke Jay Collier down the stretch. I mean, there was 0 protest from Jay Collier about who won that fight. So I agree with Jay Collier. Me and Jay Collier agree that Jay Collier lost that fight. So give me Felipe via split decision.
And I'm going to go the other way. I'll take Andre Arlovski via split decision. But I'm just not interested in it in DraftKings because I don't think either guy's really going to be going for takedowns. They are heavyweights, so the knockout is in play. But I don't think we're going to see a knockout either. Either guy could land, 100, a little bit more than 100 strikes here, but Arlovski did that in his last fight, and he only scored 74 DraftKings points. So this is maybe my least favorite fight on the card, DraftKings wise, and I'm just going to X him out of my player pool and hope that it goes to a decision and is a close split decision either way. If that's the case, I would guess that the winner scores like 60 points, and that's just not going to cut it. All right, and then next up, we got the best main event of all time, Aspen Ladd minus 138 versus Norma Dumont plus 112. We got a 5-rounder here where we just saw Ladd really struggle on the scales, so she's jumping up weight to 145. But she worried a lot of people when she was on those scales, and she doesn't have really in-between time here. Break this down for me.
So for Aspen Ladd to win, she needs to take down Norma Dumont and get on top of her. I mean, that's how Aspen Ladd wins fights. Her stand-up is very ugly to watch. Norma Dumont's got 100% takedown defense, and she's been in there with grapplers. I mean, Felicia Spencer's a black belt. Ashley Evans-Smith has a high school wrestling background, and it was actually Norma Dumont landing takedowns on both of them. So I think Norma Dumont's got better stand-up, and if she can keep this fight on the feet, I think she's going to win this fight. So give me Norma Dumont for the upset.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think she is the better striker, maybe even live for a knockout here. I think if someone gets top control in this fight, that's where the ceiling is really going to come from. So I don't think the person on bottom is really going to offer much, and both ladies could just stay in top control for a long time. And with Ladd, she's just got mean ground and pound where she could finish the fight there. And I think that's what Ladd not only has to do to score well on DraftKings, but that's her best shot at winning as well, because I don't see her winning 3 rounds on the feet, even though I'm worried about Dumont's cardio. Neither of them had fought a 5-round fight before, but Dumont was really struggling in that 3rd round in her last fight. Now we got an extra 2 to work with. I don't see that going well for her, but I don't know how Ladd will look either in those later 2 rounds. So this is kind of just a toss-up fight for me. I look at it as a coin flip, and I would much rather take plus money on a coin flip any day. So give me Dumont. I think she could get top control time, score well that way in the decision. And I also think that TKO is in play. I think she's got some of the better striking in women in the women's divisions. And we did see Ladd get starched by GDR. Totally different fighter, but not a chin that I would really want to trust against someone who I think can throw some bombs. So give me Dumont. I like both sides of the fight on DraftKings, but it's just going to be easier to afford Dumont. So she'll be my preferred play of the two. I'll get more leverage to her, but I'm cool targeting Aspen Ladd as well, because when she wins, she scores, 95 plus points, and that could be the same here if she's able to get top control time. So this will be one of my favorite fights to target in GPPs. For cash games, just stack it, take your win, take your 100 plus points, and hope to get your other spots right. But yeah, I think we got a pretty close fight here. Give me the underdog. And then next up, we got just our kill shot. Every week we give a kill shot, somebody who we think will go a little bit overlooked on DraftKings, who we think can be our key to a 100K win. Do you have anybody in mind this week?
Yeah, Bruno Silva, man. I think that he's going to come out here and plain and simply knock out Andrew Sanchez and get on that optimal lineup.
I dig it. I'm gonna go with Carnalosi. I think she's just gonna be pushing forward, landing some bombs, get a couple of nice slams in there, and eventually finish this fight maybe. So I'll take Carnalosi in the curtain jerkers. I think those have been finishing at a high rate lately, so I'll just keep that take that streak to keep going, and give me Carnalosi. But I'm cool with both those fighters getting 1st round knockouts, because I could see me having a lot of lineups where they are both in there. But yeah, man, good luck this weekend. Hopefully I'll see you at the top of the leaderboard. If not, hope we see a lot of DFS Army helmets. Good luck to everybody listening. Send us some green screens on Twitter if you get them, and good luck. Enjoy these fights. Peace out.